Okay, here I am in my dome again. My dome in progress. I'm going to be a little closer to the thing because you can hear that the wind's kicking. It's not really windy, it's just windy enough. I still got this like flat thing on top. You gonna stop flapping for a second? Alright. So anyway, yeah, I thought a little bit more progress since last time. I don't know if you can see that. Look at this big, really ugly, beefy arch. It's ugly now, but it'll look pretty when I'm all done. But working on that. Have to kind of take a pause on it because I ran out of blocks and I got to make more blocks. And there's other things I want to do anyway. Anyway, I wanted to. I guess this is sort of a thing, me and my dome. Anyway, I was reading this book. I got one of a few books I got at the Crazy Horse Museum. It's pretty interesting. It was written by an author named Ed McGuy. It's called Black Elk Speaks 4. It's sort of like there's the original Black Elk Speak, and I guess it's his take on it. And his criticism of it. It's pretty interesting, but there's some cool tidbits he's got in there. There was one about, it's kind of funny because it made me think of this punk rock song by the band the Minutemen, who are like back from the 80s, whatever, one of the original. All their songs were like, a minute less, really fast, and this kind of thing. They had this one song called the Punchline, which is pretty funny, about General Custer just getting his ass kicked, basically. But it's kind of funny because Ed McGuy in his book, his argument based on some evidence dug up and whatnot is that the Battle of Little Bighorn, like most people say, oh, it took all day and it was like this big dramatic affair and Crazy Horse and all his troops or warriors were fighting with bows and arrows and this kind of thing. And he actually makes the argument that they had guns. They actually had guns and Winchesters and whatever other repeating rifles, and that the battle was over in 30 minutes. So it kind of made me think so it's probably over in 30 minutes, and then the Minutemen song is over in 30 seconds, which is kind of funny. So anyway, I just started thinking of that song and started laughing while I'm reading this book. But that's probably true. They always over dramatize things, and then when you look at the real history, it's not as whatever Hollywood it's sort of it's no, it was over in 30 minutes. It's but the other things, there was something else he got into genetic memories he started talking about, because he mentioned now one of the things that the Lakota warriors could do really well was they could ride horses and keep both their hands free. As you can see, I don't have my hand free because one of them's holding the camera. So anyway, they could ride it with their hands free and ride it and be very steady with the rifle, and so they're more effective. There's just this, a skill and ability that they had that the Europeans didn't on their horses, and it was a big advantage, so they could aim way better. And he ties that into genetic memory. The other argument he has is that a lot of the first people who came over to the Americas, you've heard a lot of people have made that theory about that they came across the Bering Strait and all that. And he thinks that because he went over to China and I think Mongolia, and he said he thinks there's probably they're probably related to them more than anything. And then he talks about how Genghis Khan, in a lot of his warriors and his battles, they could do the same thing. They could ride horses with their hands free, and they were much more effective that way. So he thinks it's a genetic thing within the Lakota that they were able to pick that up quickly, and so it's pretty interesting. I don't know, I'm not a scholar about it. There's probably other views on that, so it's Hey, if you're watching this, throw it in the comments. You know, it's cool. I'm not but I thought it was an interesting thing. So I think that's the genetic memory part kind of got me thinking about just as a, you know, I'm a white guy, whatever, with European background in America, and it's kind of strange. Like, I grew up like Protestant, but I'd never really connected with it. I'm not against it. Like, I'm not. People are Christian, it's fine. Whatever, whatever works for you. But it never quite connected for me. And I looked at other religions like Buddhism and things like that, and there's always like bits of it that I like, but it never totally got me. And it wasn't really until I started reading about like Lakota ideas and some Native American ideas where it really like hit something, like maybe it's in my genetic memory banks, like way down, like way in the deep recesses, my subconscious. Now some of you might go, well, wait a minute, dude, you're a white dude, you're not Lakota. No, I'm not a Native American, obviously, or not so obvious. Like, kind of, never mind. But I am Celtic. Okay, like a lot of Europeans, you go before Rome, before like Christianity took over and all that. There were indigenous tribes, So, and I have a lot of Scottish, English, Welsh. There's some Scandinavian in there, definitely, and German, that kind of thing. Oh, it's flapping. Okay. I just want to make sure you can hear this. So they were probably very similar, in a lot of ways, and then it made me think of this book I read. I think it was by Stuart Piggott. It's been a while since I read it. But there was a picture that a Roman guy drew of like the early Britons when they first got over to what we now call Britain or England, and drew them, and they were like, these guys with long hair. And I got the hair going here too. So anyway, but they had long hair, kind of tall, kind of bigger, tattoos, and then he put next to it a picture that like early American colonists from Europe drew of Native American, and they looked very similar, and there's a lot of similarities with symbols and stuff, like the medicine wheel and the Celtic circle are very similar, and there's things like that. So it's almost like for like an American or like a white person, American, whatever, European based American, it's almost like learning about Lakota. It's almost like an end around to finally trigger that ancient, Celtic spirituality or whatever, or Viking or whatever. It's interesting, Now, I guess there's more to say about that, but I just thought it just got me thinking about that. Like, sometimes you read about, a culture that's different than yours, but there's similarities that trigger something. It's just it's an interesting, the genetic memory thing. I think it's really an interesting idea. But yeah, I don't know, because as far as what Celts did, as far as rituals and spiritual practices and stuff like that, I don't know what they did. I have an idea. There's a little bit out there about what they did, so it's probably similar to what Lakotas did, not the same. And then on top of that, though, there's also, I think like Thomas Sheridan talked about this, and somebody else's. Should like a white person do like a Lakota ritual, like a sweat lodge and a Sundance? I don't know if that's. I'm not sure about that. I guess that's for another video. But anyway, I just wanted to put this out there. All right, I don't want this to get too long. All right, see you later.